Yo, we're back everyone! Time for a new series! I will be continuing the RPG series a little bit later. I'm thinking that the Word document needs to be done first, but I'm going to start a new series. This one is the beginner to advanced scripting series. So like what Blocks has been doing, what Dev King has been doing, but my own take on it from the ground up. So I have a list here of like what I want to do. There's a load here. This video is going to be about the studio basics, so getting into studio, opening games, changing all your settings to how you like them. So we'll start with that, and then also later on we'll go to the basics of scripting, which I think will probably be the next video or the one after, where we have a look at variables, loops, functions, all of that stuff that a lot of you will want to learn. And yeah, and then we'll go to the Roblox scripting core stuff. So our basics of scripting is just normal programming. And then our Roblox scripting core stuff is talking about Roblox specific stuff. So like filtering enabled, how does that work? All the services, local player, editing GUI. So I'll be referring to my GUI tutorial for this. Organizing your games, and then all the other useful modules like promises, springs, maids, janitors and maids, the same thing pretty much. Modularization, and then also your own framework, which I'll base off mine. And then we'll do some games. So yeah, so that's what we're aiming for. So I'm just gonna skip over that now. We'll just do that when the time comes, and let's get into Studio. So if you haven't touched the develop page, this is what it looks like. Pretty neat. Just hit start creating. It will open Studio for you. If you don't want to open Studio yet and just have a look at the games that you've got saved, just click manage my experiences here. It will take you to the develop page. You can see experiences here. If you have archived games in Studio, I'll show you how to do that in a second. Go places and you'll be able to see it here also. You've got everything here that you own, so models, decals, badges, blah 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 blah. There's a doc reference here. This is extremely useful and I highly recommend it. I believe Roblox is working on their own version of it though, so we'll see if this stays up, because obviously like the dev form stuff, they've been removing it. But having the API reference like this one is extremely useful, and I highly recommend you keep that open when you're scripting. Alright, I'm going to keep that open also. We'll refer back to this later on. But for now, we want to edit your place. So you can create a new experience. You can click edit on this one and then just delete everything and do whatever. Or we can just open Studio. So if you just want to open Studio, just click edit here. So actually if I go here, so if I click edit here, it will open Studio. It might have to install. So install it by pressing the download Studio here, running that, then pressing edit again. It's going to open Studio, the game here. So you might not have everything that I've got here with all the other hidden services. I'll show you how to toggle that. You probably want it off though. But this is like the default game that you get. There is other default games that you can also do, but if you make a new account, this is the one you get. For now, let's just close out of it. So below your tools up here, you'll have your, in my case, basic to advanced scripting's place. Just hit the X and it will take you back to Studio. So these are all the game templates here. You can just have a look at these if you want, go through them. But we're only going to be using these front two. Maybe flat terrain, but probably only classic base plate and base plate. Under these other buttons over here, you can have a look at the games that you own, group games, and anything that's shared with you. So this is Team Create. Under group games, there should be a button here to select the group that you can look at the games under, that you have permissions to. And yeah, you can just click that button and then you'll see the games. Under recent, this will just be recent games that you've got open, or have had open. And under archive, you can archive games which pretty much stores them, but out of view. You can view the games here and you can restore them to edit them again after you've archived them. Same with group games. I believe you cannot go in Team Create. Like if you've gone in a Team Create with another person in a game and they've archived the game, you probably can't access that anymore. It won't appear here. It may appear here. I don't know. I don't think it does. but that will disappear from here. Anyhow, let's have a look at the other options that we have in this widget here. Up here we have our logout button. That's if you want to log out into Twitch accounts. It's honestly just easier logging out, changing on the website, and then clicking edit again. It's just way easier. With our what's new, so this would be like all the updates that happen. Usually you don't have to worry about most of these unless it's scripting based or building based, animation based, whatever's your forte, if not all of them. So yeah, under file settings, we can have a look. We can just create a new place. It will default to this first base plate game. We can open a game from a file. We can open up a game from Roblox, which is just your recent games. We have some other items here which will be available in-game or in Studio in a game. So you got save game to file, so you can save it locally. You can save it to Roblox. And then you can also publish to Roblox, which means it will update the game publicly. So save to Roblox means it will save a version of the game on the cloud, but it won't set the active game that people can play if it's not privated to whatever you're saving. But publish does do that and makes it so the game updates to whatever you're publishing. Advanced, your autosaves there. You can export models, instances. Instances are just parts and all that as objects. Then you can import that to Blender, which is a 3D modeling program. You've got shortcuts there if you want to edit them. And plugins, we'll talk about plugins later, but they are very useful in lots of cases. Game settings, there'll be another button we'll look at. This will be for your game. You can toggle whether or not data store is enabled. HTTP service, so you can access the web. You can edit like the avatar options. You can force avatars to be certain things. You can change like the gravity of the world, all of that sort of stuff. We'll get into that. Studio settings, we'll come back to that. We've got about Roblox. This one's just information about the Roblox you're using. That's for if you have any like actual Roblox platform problems that you need to report. Beta features. This is up to you if you want to enable them. I usually do have these enabled, except the scripts are non-strict by default. But yeah, these are just like things that are work in progress that are being added to the studio, and they're just testing it now with whoever's there. So, now that we've got that, I'm just going to enable the beta features. You don't have to, but I will. Let me do that. It will restart Studio for me. There we go. Now let's have a look at Studio settings. So we have a few here, as you can see, and there's a few different menus. So the one I'm going to be worrying about is in this menu. We have our quality level here. You want to edit this before you enter the game. So if you have a pretty bad computer, go for the lower numbers. If you have a pretty good computer, go for the high numbers. Or you can just click automatic. I can handle most definitely most things with this beefy ass computer, so I'm going to go level 21. Mesh detail, choose, just do distance space. It's just distance space anyways. That doesn't really change much. You usually don't have to worry about these ones here. They're more debugging ones. Graphics mode, you can choose one if you want, or just set it to auto. And these other ones you don't really have to worry about. Physics, you don't really have to touch any of these. You can make anchored parts shown. You can have a look at the world coordinates, that sort of thing. That's up to you. Actually, that might be a good one to have. But yeah, these are usually things you don't need enabled. Or you don't have to touch these. Under network, these ones are pretty helpful things in terms of scripting here. So we have show active animation asset. That shows you what animations are enabled and running. Or I should say what animations are running on the characters. Or the animation controllers. You don't have to worry about that. But that's a very useful option when you're doing animations. Incoming replication lag. This is like simulating ping in your games. So that's a very useful one. A lot of people should be using that. Have a look at that one too. This is in count of seconds of ping. So If you do 0.25, that's 250 milliseconds, I believe. You can test it out. If you hit F9 in a studio game, it will show you the ping there, but I'm pretty sure it's in seconds. Diagnostics, you don't really need to touch these. Script editor, we'll come back to this. This one you definitely do want to edit. Mainly turn off text wrapping, that's just annoying. Show whitespace, that's another really good one to have. And most of these you do want enabled here. Turn off temporary script tabs in Explorer also, that one's annoying. Indent using spaces, turn that off. Tab width, set it to 4. Just keep the font the normal, so Fira Mono, 15 point, and normal. Under Studio, you can edit these camera options if you want. That's just when you're moving around. Your script and plugin directories, you can change this if you want. If you want to have specific folders set up for everything, for portable mode or whatever, just set that up there. Always change script, always save script changes. You can have that enabled or disabled. I recommend enabled for newer scripters. Language, just do whatever. Theme, please set it to dark. I don't want to see fucking white theme. Most of this you can leave alone unless you want to edit colors. Same here, auto recovery path. Keep that enabled, do like 3 minutes. If you're working on big games, change that to like 5 minutes. Output font, just leave that. Leave this as it is. Decorate objects, show them. Actually no, keep that one off. Yeah, keep that one off. Diagnostics bar, turn that one on. And then leave the others as is. This audio, make sure it's online game, ticked in 0.2. That main volume is just so you don't get blasted when you join the game. So if it is really loud when you join the game, just turn it down more. But generally 0.20. Then the Explorer options. So if you saw earlier in my Explorer, there was a lot of like services, objects, all that in the Explorer. That's because I had Core GUI enabled and I had hidden objects enabled. So make sure that all 3 of these are disabled. You won't need them. The plugin GUI service you might need later on when you're doing plugins, but not for now for the beginner. Not for the beginner person. Show +1 on hover, enable that. That's helpful. Navigation mesh, you don't need to worry about that. That's for pathfinding. Navigation labels, same thing. Decomposition geometry, we'll get a plugin for this, but that's a very useful plugin for mesh optimization and collision optimization. So we'll come back to that later, if I remember. Light guides, enable that. Pathfinding links, enable that. And we're done with the settings and all of that. Restart. Make sure you do restart so it applies everything. And now we're ready to go into Studio. Right, so let's go in a game. So you can pick your default game here. You can pick a new one and then save it to Roblox. Up to you. I'm going to pick a new one and save it to Roblox. I'm going to pick classic baseplate here. Just wait for that. So there's a lot of buttons when you first join it here. You won't have that. In some cases, your widget would probably look like this. One of these two. You can just separate these. I separate them very oftenly. Like that. And there's a lot happening here, so we'll need to go through it step by step. On the top left here, we have your main core buttons. A lot of these won't be here for you, because you can edit this custom toolbar thing. Just ignore the align dragged objects and the little marker here. You'd have these top ones though. So you have new baseplate. We've seen that one before. We've got quick open. I wouldn't worry about this one too much. It's just so you can select stuff quickly. We've got play solo. We've got, what is that? Redo, undo, and then we've got stop game. So if you want to play the game and test it, you can press the play solo button. And that will drop you into the game. Like so. And then just hit stop here or stop in the top left. And then it'll go back to Studio. We'll need to go through this. Because the play playtesting, I mean, is because it's pretty advanced. There's a couple things you need to know when you're debugging and all that, but we'll get to that later. Alright, sorry about that cut. I had to go help my mum grab some information for my brother. So, we're talking about play solo, we're just testing around real quick. We're going to move on to these tools here. So you have the select, move, scale, rotate. There's another two here which are collisions, join surfaces, and you have modes, which is physical and geometric. You generally want to keep it geometric unless you're testing constraints, which you want it to be physical. But I rarely use physical myself, so just keep it geometric. Geometric, yeah. So under the select tool, this allows you to select things. So this would be singular parts, or if you have a group of parts, it would let you select them and move them. We have the move tool, which lets you move them using the axes arrows. So the Y, X and Z, or X and Z, whichever way. You got the scale, which lets you resize them. You get your rotate. So it pretty much makes all sense. It makes sense from the name. And then also under the model tab, you have transform, which is like a combination of these, as you can see. But yeah. Usually you don't need to use transform, so only those would be viable. The select, move, scale, rotate. And let's talk about the collisions here. So this one will... Oh, that's weird. Oh, sorry, the move tool. So this one affects the move tool. So this will say, okay, if these parts are intersecting, don't move it. Like in the new position. But if you have that off, then it will allow intersections. Also for join surfaces, when you bring it inside it, it will join it using a weld. I highly recommend you don't do this. You turn that off and make sure everything is anchored here. So that's our other button. You got the anchor button. Make sure your builds are anchored. What is anchoring? It's pretty much the same as do you apply physics to this? So if I run this game, this right one is unanchored and the two left are anchored. So usually in builds you don't want it to move. That's how you anchor it. Under the editor, we have our terrain editor here. This one lets you do all your terrain. And if I just bring it out, we can place some terrain here. Like so. And there's different materials you can try out. If you want to edit the terrain colors. Actually, if you have a look, there's other tools here, like painting on top of terrain. You can have a look at these. They're all pretty straightforward. Regions more complex. I usually wouldn't worry about regions, but you can have a look at that if you do want to. To change material colors for the terrain, you can go under workspace here in your explorer, go terrain, material colors, and that's all here. So if I want to change brick, I can make it darker, lighter, go along the spectrum. For those that don't have the explorer and properties open, or the other widgets, like the output down here or the command bar, under the view tab, you can go explorer and properties, just open them up. You have output here and you've got command bar here. Also terrain editor is here if you want that. There's other widgets here which we'll talk about later. So team create's doing working on a game with multiple people. You've got toolbox, which you can find free models, as the term goes. Your object browser, don't use this, use the API reference. This is out of date. Under asset manager, when you publish this game, this will show up. This is where you can upload your meshes. So your meshes from Blender, you can upload images, you can upload sounds. This is one place for sounds, etc. You can have a look at that later. We'll have a look at it later. Under our script analysis, this will show warnings and errors in scripts. We'll come back to that. I personally don't use it. Performance, this one you rarely would use it. It's just to keep track of things, seeing how performant everything is. I usually generally look at this threads number and compare it when I'm doing games and all that, but yeah, not much there. Task scheduler, that's everything that's like happening, so Honestly, you don't need to worry about this one. Script performance, that's just showing you what active scripts there are, how active they're doing, like their loops and all that, how fast they're iterating, how much of the total percent of activity is that script taking up. Find all, replace all, that's a very useful one. We'll get back to that. Team create, said before. Script recovery. I don't think this one works unless it's team create. So you have to have a look at that one later. Call stack. That one's for debugging. Breakpoints, debugging. Watch, debugging. So that's for your scripts. Generally, that would be for large, like, if you got a framework set up and you're working on a big game, you probably would use these here. Generally, you wouldn't use them. You can just print, like, output a message, output whatever is erroring, or before that, whatever. We can do debugging later, but you generally don't need these. View selector, that's just a little cube up here. This is in Blender also, where you can select the face where you want to look down. So left, right. If you click, oh, actually this one doesn't have it, but in Blender, if you click on left here, like twice, it will go to the right side. So we'll just all 180, but that doesn't work here. We've got full screen. I don't use full screen. Screenshot. There's a way you can do high quality screenshots, but this one will just do it based on the resolution of your scene here. Video record. I just use OBS or some other recording software. It's better. Grid. You can have a look at the grid for the game. That's useful for building. Grid material. That's just, I believe that's only if it's called base plate. I don't know. No, it's for everything. But yeah, that's, you can count studs using this. Little squares, 1 stud. That's a 4x4 stud. Wireframe rendering. That's if you're going to look at the wireframe of everything. Switch windows. That's if you have scripts and all that open. So if I open a script here, come back out and I click switch windows, I can have a look at the different windows here. We've got stats. That's if you want to see like instances and all that. I don't know why that says 183,000. Don't worry about it. Networks, you can see all this information here, rendering. There's your FPS there. So that's in summary, and then your physics also. And then you can clear the stats. But yeah, under the model tab, there's more here. I won't go over them. There's like constraints, there's aligning, there's pivot points. There's some other things at the end here which are useful. So you can actually add scripts here. You can run scripts from files. You got collision groups. You got services, which are useful. You can have a look at them. Model, you can import models. You can insert objects here. So this insert object menu is also in the plus button. Or if you don't have the plus button enabled, just right click, insert object. And that's here too. We will rock you. Alright. Under our test here, we can do a couple of things. We can play the game solo. We can play the game here. So we'll spawn where the camera is. We can run the game as server mode only. So we won't load in a character. So if you're making like a server system or like a core data system and you just need to check for errors quickly, you can just run it. It will do any normal errors where it doesn't require any events. It will trigger errors and all that. You got local servers. So this one's for more, if you need to test with multiple players for a specific thing, and you don't want to have other people join your game, you can do a local server here. You got device emulation. So this will let you simulate devices. You can test your UI on it, all of that. There's also a way for you to do large resolution screenshots. So for example, I've got this 4K mode. I chuck on an actual resolution, take a screenshot, and that's 4K resolution there. So it's very nice. Make sure you fit to window though before you turn it off, otherwise it will bug out. We've got player emulation. That's if you want to load in as a specific client. You can change all the settings here. And then you can mute the audio from Roblox Studio. The view menu, we've gone through this. Plugins, so you'll see plugins here. This is where you can go manage plugins. So actually, I've got a few plugins already. They won't appear here though because I actually have them installed on a different account. But if you click the plus here, you'll see all the plugins here. Some are paid, some are free. Archimedes, great one. 3D Text, another great one. And yeah, you can just have a look through them. I generally wouldn't install them randomly. I'll get ones that you necessarily really do need. It's like Archimedes, that lets you generate circles. Reclass, I highly recommend this one. I'm going to install it right now. It's so useful. But yeah, so that's what it is. Just have a look through them if you want. You don't have to. I can just give you recommendations as we're going through working through scripting. But yeah, that will cover this tutorial video here. It was just going through Studio, just having a look at all the buttons and everything. Generally the things that you do need to understand. You got the Explorer here. We'll come back for the properties widget. So this properties widget, will come back to that because we'll be scripting. Because since we'll be scripting, we need to refer to the properties of items. So we'll be going through this quite a bit. We'll be setting like the position, the size, the color, brick color, whether or not it casts shadows, all of that will go back through here. And I'll explain how the game works, how things work in Studio, and all of that. So hopefully this was a good video, that you've learned something new. Maybe something you didn't know, like this little customized widget here, where you can edit the top left. That's something a lot of people don't know. Thanks to somebody on Twitter who I forgot who it was. They found that out, and I didn't realize it was there either. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video where we start talking about the basics of scripting. Yeet.